I like it with everyone, you know. Look, we're open, we're a business. Welcome to Peckham and welcome to DKUK. We've been here since 2014, the mirrorless hair salon where people look at art while they get their hair cut. Finally, we're bringing the DKUK podcast to YouTube so you can watch the haircut take place as well as listening to some interesting conversations with art world professionals. Today we've got Lucy Cowling. Now there's no one better to talk about creativity and DKUK than Lucy. Lucy started with us in 2020 and worked here for a year on the exhibition programme. Has been involved ever since. Whether that be actively involved in our art advisory board or curating the shows last year as part of KIP or this year as part of a female curatorial collective, the GUR Band. Now this conversation's for anyone who loves art and wants a career in the arts but doesn't know where they fit in. They've not quite found their place yet. Lucy says something fascinating. She wanted to be close to art and close to the making of art, but not be the one producing it herself, but helping to bring it to a wider audience, which really resonated with me. The themes are finding your way without a plan, maintaining creativity without burning out, and the benefits of collaboration in the creative process. Now, a haircut is an amazing place to have an interesting conversation. So, what was that? Lucy's here. Okay, let's go. Okay, Lucy, what would you like to do with your hair today?
I want to go back to a classic pixie.
Oh wow, okay.
All the way short again. My one concern is how that will work with the roots, whether I'm going to end up with a bit of a halo, a slightly red halo, and if that's actually quite a bad idea. But I really enjoyed having it like properly short, and I don't actually think I stuck with it long enough before it started growing out again. So I thought before I get beyond this stage and never go back up, it's the time, I think.
Exciting day. Okay, yeah. So a bit of a restyle today. So you kind of ready to leave the salon with it feeling really different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah.
I like a transformational haircut.
And on a scale of 1 to 10, how different do you want it to feel? If like 10 is
8.
Pretty bold. Yeah. Fantastic news. Okay, and how have you found it having it a bit longer?
Good. It's really come into its own now. It's a little bit more on one level, and I'm starting to get some waves in it and everything. It's like it's been really nice. I think I styled out the slightly awkward in between pretty well. But I was happy. This was what I was trying to grow it out to.
That's so funny.
I got there, and now I'm like, what's next? Back to where I started.
Oh, cool. Well, thank you for trusting me to do it. I'm very excited about that. So you've had short hair before, and that wasn't very long ago.
It was about a year ago.
A year ago. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. So, and how did you manage with the styling of it when it was short?
I loved it. It was so simple. I thought the upkeep would be much more intense than it was. It was kind of great because I didn't have any kind of bed head. It was just like ready to go, and it was, a hairstyle without. I just had to like rub my fingers through the fringe, and I was done, and it looked great. So yeah, it was perfect.
Yeah, shorter hair definitely really easy to look after, right? And generally, once people have gone short, they're you don't want to like grow it out, or if you do, you end up maybe going back.
Yeah, because you can see it a bit now, right? It's been rained on. One side's going one way, and one side's going the other way, and it can tend to get quite unwieldy with bits sticking out.
Yeah. Which
is a great thing. Like I said, I love the waves and I love the movement, but it needs more styling, and I don't love doing that.
No, you're quite low maintenance with the style. Yeah. So as you just described, the haircut is much easier to look after. Super quick to style, doesn't really take much. You can reset it very easily, but it does require a bit more maintenance as in the cuts.
Yeah.
So obviously the shorter you go, the more you're going to notice it grow out. So rather than coming back every probably 10 or 12 weeks, which I guess is what you've been doing as you're growing it out, or normally 2 months if you're maintaining a haircut around this length, it's more like 5 or 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And because you'll really notice it. If we're going to, depending on how short we're going to go, obviously the shorter it is, the the more you're going to notice it.
Yeah.
So it's way easier to look after and style, and you can have a lot more fun with it. And there's so much you can do around that length as well. You know, it doesn't have to be sort of like just a cookie cutter. We can really change it up. Okay, so yeah, you understand the style, and have you got some products for still?
Yeah.
Yeah, what have you been using?
I have when it was getting a tiny bit longer, I was using the Davines like wet look to change it up with kind of slicking it back or styling it in a particular direction. When it was like really, really short, I just left it as it was, and then now I put like a kind of moulding thing in. So yeah, I don't know if there's anything that you recommend for the like when it is like pixie short to help with the styling.
It depends on the finish you want. So with my hair, I don't like anything too heavy. So the waxes can be a bit too much for me. But some other people really like having it sort of moulded into place. Personally, I would go for like a leave-in conditioner or a sea salt spray or dry shampoo.
Got that.
Like that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Works quite well. You can dry that into your hair when it's damp, and it'll just give it a little bit of texture. It'll stop it from looking too like fluffy and fresh, but you can still move your hair around. And it's good if you're doing sport and stuff and washing it a lot, so you can have just a little squirt of that on every time, and it'll mean your hair looks intentional.
Yeah.
Right? It's not going to just look fluffy and all over the place. It'll look intentional, but it'll be quite easy to look after. So something like that would work really well. And if you, bringing us onto the colour, you are going to, depends how short you want to go. So maybe we should talk about that first. So in terms of the shape, obviously a pixie can mean quite a lot of things. In my mind, I'll just talk you through what that is. So like classically, you're probably going to be quite neat in the back. Clean sort of hairline there. We'll cut it, graduate it through the fingers, maybe maintaining a little bit more softness over the ears, depending on how you wanted it there. And then like a squarer shape here, so it builds up a little bit of weight and has a bit of a fringe that sort of flops around. So just what would happen with that? I'm just like thinking as I'm talking now about where that line might fall, depending on it. Let's see where your roots are up to. The roots are. What is it? How long has it been since you had it coloured?
It was October.
So we're now February, November, December, January. So 3 months. It doesn't grow that super quick, your hair.
It does or it doesn't?
It doesn't.
No. I've waited for years to have long hair, and then at some point I gave up. It's never long enough. I feel like it does grow slowly.
My comb has got rulers on. It's 4 centimetres it's grown in 3.5 months. Yeah. So centimetre a month. Yeah, it's quite slow. Usually they say it's like half an inch per month on average. But I've never actually used the measure on my comb before. So there you go.
Another gadget.
Yeah. So I've told you classically what a pixie is, but I feel like I should ask you like what it is in your mind as well.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I had in mind. Kind of buzzed at the bottom, getting slightly longer towards the top, little fringe.
Yeah.
Coming down a bit around the ear. And yes, heavier on top than on the bottom, sort of following the shape round. But that's exactly it. I think I also couldn't quite imagine where the line would sit and whether I would end up with the root kind of it becoming a more obvious like root halo.
I think we should always do the haircut you want and then worry about the colour later.
This was
you can always colour it.
Exactly. Exactly. I was like, if that bit doesn't work, hopefully it's a way of also just like going back to brown over time.
Okay. Yeah. Obviously mine is bleached, and I really like what happens with mine. So I'll bleach it, and then next time I cut it, I end up with a line around about here, where it's a bit longer. And I have quite a bit of grey here, so my hair's mousy brown naturally, and then I get grey, and then we get bleach, and then they all sort of blend together quite nicely. And then generally the next haircut, if I've not bleached it by then you end up with tips, just with like blonde tips. So, and I often say to clients when they're coming in and talking about colouring short hair, you can get like 3 different looks from just one colour, and so that might be half a year you colour it. You only need to colour it twice per year, you know, and then you're going to get a whole different kinds of looks. And so I'd say the same with you. I think. So let's have a look at your face shape. So your face shape. Oval-ish, would you say?
Yeah.
Ish? I mean, there's no hard and fast rule to it.
There's a bit of square, I suppose.
Yeah, a little bit. A little bit of squareness and a little bit of oval. Rectangle. But somewhere in between those two, I would say. So generally, I always say these things aren't set in stone, but like the theory goes that actually a bit of hair around your face here will be complementary for you. Something that's opening that up will also work quite well. Whereas you might want to avoid, you know, a micro fringe, because that would like elongate your face shape.
Yeah. I have.
But it's what you feel comfortable.
Yeah,
with,
I have
right?
had them in the past. I've always quite enjoyed them. But
It's what you're comfortable.
the other issue there is that there's a a lick or a crown, whichever.
Yeah.
It splits anyway.
Yeah. Okie dokie. Well, yeah, I would say we break that fringe up, have that sort of sweeping across to the side. I think that'll work quite nicely, opening up a little bit here, just sort of like show off a bit more of the width of your face, and then just having like little bits that are sitting forward. So probably, does that sound okay?
Yep, that sounds good.
Like, it's impossible to say. I think you're probably going to end up with a bit of colour there at the front.
Yeah.
And so we're probably going to have a line, something like around the nape area here, where that'll be darker, getting into a bit more colour. It's fairly thick, your hair, isn't it? So
Yeah.
we can have quite a bit of fun sort of really thinning that out. I think that'll work really nicely. And that'll work also complement the colour and having the roots, you know?
Yeah.
Because you're probably going to be in the tips sort of stage on top, I would say.
Yeah.
So it's probably most of the hair is going to be dark. So there'll be like a bit of that warmth, and the colour's fairly subtle anyway.
Yeah,
I
it's
think that'll work
blended in
nicely.
really
Then
nicely.
If you think we're going to like slice through that, you'll have like a real choppy depth to it.
Nice.
And sorry, what did you say then?
Yeah, I said it's blended in really nicely as it sort of the colours start to fade a bit, but yeah.
Yeah, cool. And then we can make a decision on what you want to do with the colour afterwards there. And we spoke about the styling, we spoke about the colour, maintenance, about 6 weeks really, and you'll probably notice that it will start to grow out, especially with the hair being thicker up there. Is everything okay with your scalp? Is that itchy or anything?
No, all fine.
So good. Fantastic. All right, so just to recap, you're sick of having it long, you've just grown it out. It's a lot to manage, it's quite thick. So you want to go back to easy life. So we're going to be taking a lot off with 8 out of 10 restyle, down to a pixie clean through the hairline at the back, leaving some softness over the ears and softness like sitting onto the face, and then little sort of soft sweepy fringy bits at the front, and probably going to be looking at a bit of the colour left on the tips, but we're going to really break that out so that when we put some wax on it, you can see some real depth and dimension to the haircut. Does that sound okay?
Sounds great.
Alrighty, so what we're going to do now is head over to the basin and wash it, so please follow me. So if you just wait there.
Thank you.
Alrighty, do you need anything?
I'm all good.
Yeah, just let me know if you need me to press you. So I'm just going to use a bit of a gel. It's just to control it while we're cutting.
Okay.
I never realised how thick it is your hair.
Mm.
So, thank you for agreeing to sit down with me, Lucy.
Thanks for having me.
I'm very excited to have you here as the first full-on video recorded DKUK podcast. And I wanted to start by asking you, what was your earliest memory of your first encounter with art?
I guess I've got my parents to thank for that. I don't know necessarily my earliest encounter, but my siblings and I would get dragged around museums from a very, very early age. And it took a while until I actually appreciated it. Like if we were going to go, I always wanted to go to like the science museum or somewhere where you could essentially play within the exhibit. And I know for ages I thought art museums were really boring, but I guess it rubbed off eventually. And there's a lot of incredible museums around where I grew up. There's like I remember seeing some early Van Gogh portraits and the Potato Eaters, like his very, very early, like super dark, moody work.
Drawings.
Yeah, it is a painting. Well, the sketches from it as well. But it's like a peasant family in Zutphen in the south of the Netherlands, peeling potatoes and eating potatoes, and then over like one central light in the middle. It's like very, very dark and moody, and they have very like angular faces. Reminded me a little bit of Quentin Blake's sort of style of drawing. And that really captivated me. I remember that's really stuck with me from a relatively young age.
Wow. Where did you grow up?
In the Netherlands, not too far from Amsterdam.
Okay.
Yeah.
And was that the museums in Amsterdam that you were travelling to?
Yeah. But all around Utrecht, Rotterdam, whenever we were on holiday. Yeah, they're not, like I said, no one kind of works within the arts, so it wasn't like an obvious career pathway necessarily, but there is a big interest in it.
It's often the way, isn't it, that art gets handed down
from
exactly. Parents and such. I used to get dragged to the Transport Museum.
Did you like it?
I hated it.
You hated it?
There was a lot of art around the house, but we never got to galleries. There was a lot of prints, Van Gogh actually, and Turner. But we never got. Yeah, it was always the Transport Museum or the Textile Museum, the Industrial Revolution in Manchester. You know, the Industrial Revolution and that sort of stuff. I hated it.
It's always an assumption that young boys like trains. It's not a given. Yeah, I was big into all of that, like museums where you could like operate a digger, blow bubbles, like anything that you could just like run wild with. That was my scene at that age.
And how old were you, do you think, when you sort of had your aha moment, if you can call it that?
In terms of actually like moving into contemporary art, I was well into my 20s at that point. Like I had already, or during school, I did art all the way up until my final exams, and it was always the thing that I enjoyed. But I was like, is this what I want to go study? It was always clear to me that I wouldn't go to art school and be an artist.
You would?
wouldn't, like, it's
Okay.
something that I'd never considered doing that. I think I always thought it would be too vulnerable, or just didn't, I never thought I had it in me, basically. But then I was like, okay, so then what is the right move? I considered going to study art history, but I was like, no, I'm not actually that into like it being so grounded in looking backwards.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, kind of realizing the world around contemporary art and art galleries showing like artists who are just starting out, that only came about, I guess, yeah, when I was about 22 maybe. I remember learning that a curator was a job. I guess I always knew that people worked in museums on these exhibitions, but I never really understood how like expansive the role could be, or what it was called, or that there's courses that help you get into this sort of thing until well into my 20s. So that was a big aha moment, because I think at that point I was just figuring out that I was interested in art, but wanted to be at the genesis of the idea, or of like bringing it to a public, of like framing it, rather than the kind of framing and recontextualizing and who said what about it and what is the provenance of this precious object. Like I was starting to learn that the excitement for me was being at the point of it being made and bringing things out of the studio for the first time, and like sort of really figuring out for the first time like how to frame it and how to bring people, like viewers and visitors, into that experience.
Interesting. So I was listening, but that was very hard to put that section in. So you'd always been around art, but you always felt that you couldn't be an artist, or you didn't want. You were scared of being vulnerable.
Yeah, I think regardless of what kind of work you make, if it's about your own identity or your own experience explicitly, or if it's not really about that, but you're still like putting something of yourself out into the world, up for some form of public scrutiny.
Yeah.
And even at school when I was doing art, it was 50% theory and 50% making, and I always enjoyed the theory, the kind of thinking about how to speak about it, or like the way that objects and ideas travel. That always interested me more than the making. I never felt that confident in what I was making.
Yeah.
So I did wonder for a while, like I went and viewed loads of like graphic design schools. I thought maybe like that kind of design was the right direction, but I never applied. The same with fashion school. I actually did apply to fashion school and I got in, but through the process of doing the interviews and everything, I realised that wasn't the right choice either. And then I actually ended up doing something like highly academic.
Was this for are you talking about your BA?
Yeah, BA. So this is like 19-ish, yeah. Which was great, actually. In hindsight, it was great. But going through it, I was a bit like, what am I doing? So what was the BA? It was liberal arts and sciences. So it's like the American college model where you go in and you kind of piece your course together yourself.
Oh, nice.
And that very much came about because it was exactly that. I was like, can I see myself doing 3 years of subject X or subject Y? Like I said, I considered art history. I was like, it's too much. I don't want to do that for that amount of time and be like so rooted in that. So this was a way of, sticking with that kind of expanded horizon. Like I did a bit of languages, a bit of politics, a bit of philosophy, a bit of art history. But really, it wasn't necessarily about that. It wasn't so much about what you were learning. It was about being in a interdisciplinary environment. So you were with people who were studying science or social science. You were more learning like how to write, how to formulate your ideas, how to public speak, how to approach a problem from lots of different directions and have like different types of brains in the room that could, tackle the same thing from different angles. So that, like I said, it was more with the power of hindsight that I realised how valuable that was. But it did mean that I felt like I had to do something much more applied afterwards, because it was so broad and all over the place. I think it's like it was an amazing grounding of as a starting point of developing a critical and curious mind at that age in time. I think it was definitely the right choice. But yeah, I think it was in my third year that someone said they were going to go to a curating course, and I was like, oh my god, amazing. That was a real like green light moment. I didn't realise that was a thing you could do. And then...
Hang on, I just want to ask one thing about the BA as well. When you started it, did you have a plan in mind then, or was that more like, I know I want to do something creative, but I'm feeling a bit like, what were you...
Yeah, it was really like
or just
fumbling it together as I was going along. Yeah, very much so. And like, you know, trying to take as much out of the environment as I could. I did go like dove in head first.
Yeah.
But yeah, it wasn't like I didn't feel like I was on any kind of like career path or trajectory. It wasn't like strategic. It was just like a sponge, just like taking everything that I could, going in every which direction, and then, you know, towards the end of it, it started to become more clear.
Sounds amazing. And Steve Jobs tells that story, doesn't he, about studying, taking a class in fonts, letterpress or whatever you call it, and that's, you know, just for pure fun. He was sort of flunking out of college, and he ended up doing this like random class about like typography.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why the Mac became so like he developed a love for typography, and that's why the Mac sort of was so different to the PC and had all the different fonts to use and such, and became much more user-friendly sort of interface.
Yeah, that's become it. Yeah,
and that freedom to just let your mind sort of flow around like that.
Yeah,
must have been an incredible prep for what you did next. In a way, it's kind of like a foundation, but with like academic thinking, right? You know,
yeah,
like
exactly.
That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah.
So then, you was on your BA, and then you found out that there was you could actually study curating.
Yeah, so I found out about the course, and I never thought you would learn to be a curator in a university. Like, I did always understand that it's a practical thing that you need to go out and do in the real world, rather than learn in a book or learn in a discussion group, you know. But it took another 2 years before I decided to go and do it, and I decided to go and do it more as an investment in self, but also as a way of getting a foot in the door of the industry. So I chose a course that was quite purposefully minded at like getting you out into the world and being quite practice based rather than theoretical. And that's actually what brought me to London initially. It was supposed to just be for 2 years, and now this is my 10th year of living here.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So yeah, that really was like a big catalyst of change. Like I had an amazing peer group. There was loads of opportunity to like tap into funding from the university. And
which university was it?
It was at Goldsmiths, so up the road from here. I've been a local ever since. Always kind of around Peckham.
And how long ago were you studying at Goldsmiths?
I arrived in 2016.
2016.
Yeah. So yeah, and
very renowned curating course, right?
Yeah. One of the big ones, I think. But again, it's really good because you got access to the same things the art students had access to so all the kind of workshops. I audited different classes, so I think coming from such a kind of critically rigorous background, I missed that a little bit in a very applied course. But then I could go and take some classes within critical art theory and get that grounding in, and then you could go and use the ceramic studio just for fun, just to like be doing something with my hands, and learnt some basic woodworking and 3D printing for stuff I needed for exhibitions. So just like having that whole environment was incredible. And it was mainly, it wasn't so much necessarily what you learned, but it was like who you were learning through and with. So yeah, really just like a great peer group, many of whom are still like my closest friends now.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, so it was a really, really valuable time to kind of get going. And then off the back of that, I got a fellowship at Goldsmiths CCA. So this is, again, the gallery just up the road here in New Cross Gate. That was just opening its doors on the campus. I started before it opens.
Wow.
Stayed with them for a year and a half, and that was the thing that kept me in London. It was definitely also the thing that kind of catapulted my curatorial career insofar as I have one. I guess by now I can really say that I do have one. And it was incredible because it was the institution kind of just like inventing itself. It was, all the staff that was in place was, a couple of months in. They hadn't yet opened their first exhibition. So it was like such an amazing learning experience of like what an institution does, how it's like inventing itself, the conversations that are being had about even just like who's responsible for what within their job roles. A lot of that was partly still being figured out.
And for people that don't know, CCA is it's quite a different model for a university gallery as far as I am aware, isn't it? It's a very ambitious sort of institution within a university.
Yeah.
Showing sort of internationally renowned artists on a very high level, production and budgets and such.
Yeah,
not just a sort of gallery for students to show their work in.
Yeah, huge, beautiful spaces, like a converted Victorian bathhouse.
Designed by or built by?
Oh, I can't remember.
Some architects.
Assemble.
Yeah. There you go. Turner Prize winners?
Yeah.
Turner Prize winner?
Yeah. They just won the Turner Prize, I think, when they got the architectural commission. Yeah, they really did everything. They like made their own dye for the tiles. They bent the metal for the seats. It was like interior, exterior, all the little details, the like different material choices. They worked with the designers on the like the visual identity of it as well. So that was all consistent and coherent. Yeah, and that was all. It was. When I first went there, it was still just coming off the back of being a building site, so it was like a really, really exciting time.
And were you studying and working at the same time?
I was, but not when I was there. Like that was that fellowship was an opportunity for 2 graduates coming off the course specifically. But yeah, whilst I was studying, again, I was kind of doing like as much as I possibly could. So I was like, my very first job within arts was invigilating, so just like being sat in the exhibition, looking after the exhibition.
At CCA?
No, this was at Pace, a gallery, like a blue chip, like a big, serious, old gallery in Mayfair. Yep. Kind of a terrible job, but you ultimately did get paid to read a book, which
never had a job like that.
Which is quite useful while you're studying.
Yeah, I need one of those jobs.
And then for a little while at university, I was like, my whole life is art at the moment, art, and I was like, I actually want to make some money like outside of that. So I went for a little while, went back to working in cafes, worked for a cheesemonger, did like loads of random jobs, and then was like, okay, going into my second year, I was like, I need to be serious about finding jobs afterwards. So I started working for Deptford X.
Oh, yeah. Before we go into the world of work, how was the experience on the Goldsmiths MA, and would you recommend it as a path in for budding curators?
Honestly, it's mixed. I think it's very much, for me, it was what you put into it, you got out of it. It's not a given that people will enjoy it, basically. I think, as I said, I got very lucky with having an amazing group of people that I was going through this experience with that really led to a lot. There was a lot of energy to kind of do things together, and a lot of very collegiate and good atmosphere. But I don't know, given how expensive it now is and how much university models have changed, and how big these courses have become and all of that sort of thing, that's only gotten more and more since I've left. I don't know if I'd necessarily recommend someone at the moment. I had an amazing time. It set me up really well. I learned a lot. I'm super happy I did it, but I think you need to know what you're wanting to get out of it.
How old were you when you did the course?
I was I think I was 22 when I started.
So a little bit older.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd sort of been around a little bit.
Yeah, taken a bit of a break to figure out like
very smart.
whether that was definitely the right move, and then I knew I was ready to go back into education also. I was like...
So if I'm hearing you right, there can be amazing experiences on these courses, but don't expect people to hold your hand for you. You know, take time. There are other ways in to this world, and you know, you have to go with a bit of an agenda in a way, and some get up and go about yourself. Yeah. To make the most of it.
Yeah, like I said, ultimately, like you don't learn to be a curator in a university.
No.
So you do. It is about like the doing. You learn through the doing, and at the time, it really set us up really well to like try things out. Like the university was paying rent on a small gallery space that you could apply for. I don't think they do that anymore, but that was like incredible. That was kind of the most valuable thing. And that was all like essentially extracurricular, but it was part of the... It was just an additional offer to the course. And these kind of collaborations with spaces you could apply for, like people that are taking people on internships or like giving their space out for a while, like that was all the most valuable aspects of that course to me.
Yeah. Cool, thank you. So then moving on to the world of work, sounds like you'd done very well to get the position at the CCA through your hard work and talent. And very fortuitous that it was all happening at that time, right?
Yeah. I think it probably I became quite a good candidate for them because I'd just come off doing all of this work for Deptford as a student, which is a fringe festival, so like an open application festival every 2 years in Deptford, where the course was being taught at the time also, and it was all about connecting artists with local spaces. So I just built up this like amazing knowledge of different groups and different people working in the area, and just general context to the locality of the gallery. So I think that was probably the thing that made me got me that next job.
Interested. So taking initiative again, you know, getting yourself out there. And was that a job you were doing while you were studying?
Yeah.
So that was presumably part-time.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, at some point I was doing a big mix of part-time jobs, and they were sometimes that was completely unworkable in terms of like, I'd generally had fixed days, but things would move around, you know, there's like openings or events or like extra times you need to be in places or things run over or anything like that. I'd often be going from like one job to another within the same day to make the week work. And yeah, that was definitely too much. So when the fellowship ended, I knew that my next move had to be to just get one full-time job, which luckily worked out pretty quickly as well.
So that's when we move into CCA.
That's when so this is was at the CCA for about a year and a half, but that was fellowship was part-time. So it was 2 days.
Oh, sorry, right, I got you. Yeah.
2 days a week in the office, a day a week as duty manager, like running the gallery as a weekend job on the side. Still helping out with the festival for Deptford X, running the exhibition program here at the time as well. Was like a week and a day and a half. Yeah, that was all at the same time. But yeah, my time here got cut slightly short because it was the one thing that was still running on as I then moved into a full-time office job.
So just to clarify that, Lucy was working her ass off amongst lots of galleries, one of them being DKUK, did a fantastic job here with our exhibition programme. We just moved into the space here at Queen's Road, so you sort of quite a specialist in newly opened spaces by this point.
Yeah. This was 2021.
Yes,
right. Yeah.
So that was like a 1-year position, and Lucy and I got on very well. Lucy really helped develop some amazing shows in a brand new space, right?
Yeah.
And how we work with the artists, and has been involved in our in DKUK in one way or another ever since, really. So you worked with us on the advisory board.
Yeah. Yeah, and working in a space like this kind of really solidified the thing that I'm most interested in, which is like bridging that gap between the viewer and the public. But I find it the most interesting to do within a space that isn't the kind of classic brightly lit, white-walled, classic, typical gallery. I don't think I would ever go and work for a really big institution. And I like that, kind of working with the parameters of the space and kind of bringing the best out of that and being that kind of translation point between an artist who maybe isn't used to working in that environment and kind of helping shape like how to make that how to make their idea work within the context, I think is always the most interesting.
Yeah, and can you say a bit more about expanding, I can't remember the phrase you used, but talking about bridging the gap, so not working in white cube spaces, but what was it that was attractive about not working in a white cube space? Can you say a bit more about that?
Well, I think on a really basic level, it's just a bit more real and also a bit more fun. Like the thing that's great about running a program in a space is that you get to know it inside out and you get to understand how people use it and what works where and all of that sort of thing. You're the kind of the expertise within that. So then it becomes like a two-way translation. So you're both kind of doing that job towards the artist to get the best out of their artwork, and you're also doing that job towards the people that come into the space to experience the work at the other end. And I think spaces that are really good at getting a really wide range of public, that's then the most interesting. Because you can really think about, okay, how am I speaking to people? How is the work speaking to people? Like, what can I contribute to that to make the overall experience, like on all sides, better? I do see the job of someone who's curating an exhibition as being you're the bridge between the artist, the artwork, and the people who are coming in to see it or to spend time with it, as you do
That's
here.
a nice way to describe it. Yeah. So where did you move on to after DKUK?
I went into a role at the Roberts Institute of Art, which was it's a foundation that for many, many years already had been known for commissioning performance, and I came on essentially as a producer on the performance program, which was great because it's something that I'm really interested in. Again, you've got that like performance can move into lots of different spaces often, and it's about like bringing people together in that live moment, so that is everything kind of comes together in that in one room in a night, or there's that kind of like time-basedness I've always found really appealing and interesting. But it was my first job like really producing something, so really working over a long period of time with a group of artists, like really getting to know them. It was also because at this point it was COVID, like 6 weeks into the job, so like super new, just getting to grips with everything that we were going to be doing and that I was going to be doing. Lockdown started and the office closed and the whole job moved to from home, and there was obviously no performance happening for ages, so it completely changed the dynamic. It had some really great sides to it. The organisation decided to set up this commissioning arm to make sure that people who just lost loads of work, artists making performance, had a steady stream of income to kind of see them through and be developing a new work with the promise that whenever people could gather again, that's when it would be put on. So kind of like however long it would take. I think probably they didn't realise at the point of setting this programme up just how long it would take. It was like another 2.5 years. But it meant over that time, it was basically my job to develop these 5 commissions from like the very first conversation to finding the venue, getting it made, getting people there, from start to finish, and that there was like a.
And how long did you say the timeline was for that?
It was about 2.5 years.
Wow, for each project?
Yeah, well, so they were running concurrently, yeah. Yeah, and there was also a performance programme supposed to happen at Glasgow International, so they were working a lot with partnerships, and that did happen, but that all got recorded and put out in different ways. So we, at some point, were able to go up to Glasgow, did this like really mad video shoot where the artist's idea was to have a toy Range Rover, so this tiny car, be chased by these big mastiff dogs. So the dog would look kind of like a Godzilla like monster in comparison with the car, and like on paper sure, but in practice it was an absolute nightmare. Like the dogs were not interested in the car whatsoever. And we had a drone operator like flying a camera. He was supposed to be like filming it from above. The dog was supposed to run after the car and then like drool over it. The dog wouldn't run, and then on the first run through, the drone operator, like, I don't know, I can't remember what happened, but anyway, we were on the bank of the Clyde, on the bank of the river, and like after the first or second take, he flew his camera into the river and it was gone. So yeah, the whole thing fell to pieces pretty hard, but we put something out in the end. We had to like move it to indoors and like static shots. But yeah, from that idea originally being a live performance that was supposed to happen in a room, of this car zooming through a room of people and then these random dogs running out after it, to what it ended up being was quite an arc. But yeah, that was there were definitely some really fun times in that, but like managing that set, like that, me never having done that before and all of these things going wrong at the same time, was pretty intense.
It's a real balance, isn't it, of, because you need an artist's approach to things,
Yeah.
but also you need their like organizational skills, like to balance that, like organization and openness is quite a skill, I think.
Yeah, being
to be that organized and fixed, but also like letting the ideas go where they want to.
Yeah.
It's very impressive.
And also, you know, it's about getting the best out of people at the end of the day. So there's a lot of, I don't know, emotional labor, maybe for a better word, but sort of soft people skills that also takes like a lot of time and energy. So it's like all the different hats that you wear, like within film, TV or theatre, I'm sure this would be like many different people's jobs. You know, you'd have like the production manager, and you'd have the like assistant camera, and you'd have the person with the clipboard, and it was, with us it was just like the camera, the dog trainer and me doing all the other jobs. Because even the artist wasn't able to travel to Scotland for it.
Right. Because this was in COVID.
This was in COVID. They were in Denmark, like directing from afar, essentially, just coming in on video call, being like, "It's looking great," not being able to review any footage because the camera had gone into the water. But yeah, that was a really fun time. I stayed there for about for that length of time, 2.5 years. Finished that big commission project.
Yeah. That must have been such a relief to just be in one place for a while.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Racing around.
Yeah. And then again, you know, as these things go, that
So
kind of set me up for the next thing again.
So it was like a slow development, right? For in terms of your career path. You know, you're at Deptford X, you just sort of put yourself out there while being a student and get to know the community.
Yeah.
There, working hard, and then that led on to Goldsmiths, and ultimately here, you know, like just honing your skills and building them up slowly to be more of a producer role. So then, what was the next step after that?
Yeah, so it was quite conscious. I mean, to an extent, it was just like saying yes to whatever I could, you know, whatever was on offer. But I was also thinking about that I wanted to work within lots of different contexts. to smaller organisations, so charity, a gallery, like a big institution, this foundation that was doing something very different. Like they were also managing a big collection, partnering with museums, like all of that was thinking about how to get experience in lots of different contexts.
And this was a conscious decision of yours to like build up the different areas.
Yeah, yes and no. Like it was definitely something I wanted, and it also meant I was applying to these different contexts. And I wasn't like scattergun applying. I was like thinking quite carefully about what I wanted to do and why, and if I thought I'd actually like be the right candidate for the role. So it wasn't just like, oh, just try everything and see what sticks. But also to an extent it is, because it is hard to find a job. And
they're incredibly competitive, aren't they, these jobs? Yeah. So to put it in context, I think for the role that you applied for here, I think there's about 30 applicants, something like that. Yeah. And I imagine in more better known institutions it can be, you know, hundreds. So
yeah, I'm sure. I mean, this was the great thing about this fellowship, right? That was really like a big turning point or starting point, because I think you'd probably never be up against so few candidates for a job role, because we were a graduating class of 18.
Oh, so it was only people from the curating course.
There are 2 spots available.
Ooh, God, you're still friends with some people.
Yeah. But a lot of people didn't apply for it because they knew that they were moving away. Their visa was expiring. You know, sometimes very practical reasons. Sometimes they already had something else lined up. Some people didn't want to stay in London. So yeah, I don't know how many people actually ended up applying, but I was like, I'm never going to have be up against as small a pool of people for a role within an institution as that opportunity is. Yeah. But also at the same time I was doing a lot of my own stuff, or as much of my own stuff on the side as I could.
Okay, yeah, great. Let's talk about that.
And the only way that was manageable and is fun is to do it with others. Like that, working collaboratively became super, super important to me. There was one really big project that I ran with 2 friends started in about 2018. Yes, started in 2018, kind of went public in 2019. And it's called Against the Run of Play, and it was about women's football. It was about kind of taking the ideas of spectatorship from sport and participation from sport and kind of applying them to an arts context and vice versa. So to kind of apply modes of being that we have within art, like different formats of events, screening programs, performances, roundtable discussions, exhibitions, and combining that with screening women's football games. So kind of working out strategies to kind of bring these crossover audiences into the space and have a dialogue between these two industries, I guess, but at a crossing point. So all of the work was people making work about how to move like a team, or directly about women's sports or women's football. And that was just an incredible project, and it was, again, just really fun. I think that is a guiding principle, like, are you actually enjoying what you're doing? And that got me back into playing football, which I hadn't done since school, and now that's such a big part of my life. Like a genuine hobby that I spend a lot of time on. Like also like following sports teams, going to live games, playing. So again, coming through that arts context, but it's actually like permeated into like lots of different aspects of my life, and that approach of working with others and working in a really publicly minded and community minded way. So like one thing we did there was commission artists to work with local girls teams for them to make an artwork together. So we did this with 3 different girls teams in Peckham, Honor Oak Park area, and they went to the trainings for like a sustained period of time to kind of get to know each other, and then like made a work together. So one made a film together, one made a co-authored banner that got hung up in their training, the cage pitch that they play on. So it was kind of like making them a team identity, and with one we made them a new kit. So they co-designed their own shorts and shirts and logo. And I think I've seen them, it's a team that's still really, really active. I'm pretty sure they're still using the kit because I've seen them play around Peckham not too long ago. So that's some really proud moments that those things like really, really had legs. Also for a lot of people that are involved in the project, it was like a really important thing that sometimes people could still come up to speak to me about. At some point in a fruit and veg shop, I got recognised by a woman who said like, "Are you the football lady?" And it was because her daughter had come to like one of our workshops, and I was like, that was like a real like, oh, I've made it moment, because I was like, oh wow, this has actually had a proper like impact on someone. You know, like a small thing, but it's like really, it's meant a lot, and that was really special to like, because this was maybe like a year or 2 years later. I have no idea how she recognised who I was, and this person had come to the thing because we'd put a little bulletin in like the Lewisham Council newsletter. So again, very much actively thinking like, how do we communicate beyond the typical art systems and reach other people?
And I'm interested to talk a bit more about that. So were you conscious, I want to be like a high-flying curator, David Zwirmer, and or were you thinking at this point, well, I know I still want to be doing these really fun, more public projects. How are you balancing like your career and your like fun, interesting projects there?
Yeah.
Did you have a plan, or was that just sort of just doing anything that comes in front of you?
I never had a plan, but the plan was always to not be the high-flying curator. Like from working within these institutions, also I was like, I don't see myself do the trajectory of like working within the cogs of a bigger organisation where you go from like assistant curator, senior curator, director, and it becomes in a way increasingly removed from it becomes much more about like being responsible for bringing the money in, or being a good manager of your staff, or like running a building, or these sorts of things. I guess, I mean, to an extent I am doing that now. Like my job right now that I've started just in the beginning of the year is a director of an institution.
I look at all these directors and think, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, I'm going to dip my toe in, because I'm doing it as a maternity cover, and then at the end of that maternity cover, I'll go within that organisation. I'll go into a programming role. So it's London Performance Studios, again, staying very local, about 10 minutes away from here, and again back into the world of performance. It's an organisation that commissions, develops performance, and bridges the gap between like art and theatre. So it's very intentionally situating itself in between the two. So it's often about working with people who are theatre makers or opera makers that want to do something that's more art coded, a bit more experimental, or with artists who have a performance practice but don't know how to scale that to working with a bigger creative team, are interested in maybe bringing in actors or a dramaturg or a lighting designer or whatever it might be. So the organisation helps them to be able to make those steps and move between those two worlds a bit more freely. But yeah, it's very much that. For 9 months I'm the director, and I'm doing exactly those things of like looking after a team of people, running a building, looking after the finances, and I'm very much seeing it as a
my world.
Seeing it as a like a learning curve.
Yeah.
And
you never know where it's going to lead.
Exactly.
What skills and stuff is going to develop that will see you.
Yeah, exactly that. And also still thinking about...
sorry to interrupt, but fantastic to be learning on someone else's time.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah,
good for you.
Yeah, and knowing that I will hand it back and go back into something that I know I'm definitely interested in. And all of this also with a slight viewpoint of like, would I ever run my own space? And I need to then have all of these skills. But yeah, and so far I'm really enjoying it. So you never know until you do, right? I might end up exactly in the thing I thought I would never end up doing, which is often the way.
Right, I'm going to dry us off now.
Yeah.
Is there a way you naturally push it to?
No, I mean, I usually part it in the middle rather than very forward.
Okay. I forgot to get some before photos of your hair. Especially with such a big change.
Yeah, it's always good to document. No, all good. Thank you.
How short do you want to go at the back? You've got a hairline like mine, which just kind of grows up at the back there. And I'd probably suggest just like barbering it off, quite sure.
Yeah, I'm happy to follow your lead.
Yeah.
There's
'cause otherwise it sort of just
there's that there, so anything as long as it covers,
be careful with
I
that.
think,
Yeah, that'll be
but sure it will.
So yeah, we've been talking a lot about career,
Yeah.
interests, and passion projects, and doing projects more for fun. And what I'd like to ask you now is that how do you balance your time and energy? Because obviously you're working full time and producing creative projects is a lot.
Yeah.
Right? And you've been doing it now. From what, if I understand correctly, 2018 was the first one.
Yeah.
It's now 2025. 7 years is a long time to be working 2 jobs essentially. So how do you find that, and how do you protect your sanity and your energy?
I think there's a couple of important guides for me. Therefore, like all the stuff I do on the side, I do with other people because of, again, if you're doing it in your own free time, at the very least it needs to be fun. So like working with friends as a way also of consistently seeing people and challenging people, but also sharing the workload becomes quite important. And I think you learn so much from other people, or like letting each other kind of run with an idea, and I think that often makes things better. But yeah, the other really important thing is just like going at your own pace with it. Like the gallery project I run with my partner Mark in our flat, we do 2, maybe 3 a year, and it's just at whatever pace we feel we can manage. There's no like rhythm to the program. If we want to take a break from it, then we take a break from it. And it's the same with most of the kind of side projects that I run, that they very much go at their own pace. The other big thing is that I did decide I was doing too much, and I have kind of I've cut back quite a bit of the other things I'm doing, so I'm focused just on GUR, so that's the collective that is also now doing the exhibition program at DKUK, and KIP, which is the house gallery, and essentially nothing else, so no other.
Only two side projects.
Only 2 major projects, but no, I was also doing
a full-time
like
job as a director.
Yeah, so this is the other big thing. This job is a 4-day a week, so I've moved. Part of the reason kind of the biggest reason that I changed jobs was because the role I was in before was full time, but it was kind of full time plus. Like there was quite a lot of overtime, quite a lot of evening work. Like your phone kind of never stopped buzzing, even on the weekends, and that's the thing that I like consciously wanted to get away from. So this is a 4-day a week role. It's a lot more boundaried in many ways, and that's kind of exactly what I was looking for. So it's got the challenge, it's got the learning curve, it's got the environment that I really like, but the kind of biggest pull factor was just like the better work-life balance. And life in my case might mean that I'm still doing lots of forms of unpaid work, but yeah, it's just readdressed that a bit better so that I actually have capacity to do these things. And yeah, because as you said, I was starting to realise that I had taken on too much, and I didn't want to run out of steam to do the things that I actually wanted to do. So I needed to restructure my week and my life quite severely. So this was a big step in that.
Well done. I have enormous respect for what you're doing, and the fact that you're putting so much into it and giving so much. I was talking to somebody the other day, and it always does seem to be artists and curators who are like the subsidisers of art, right?
Unfortunately,
the
so
ones paying with their labour.
Yeah.
So thank you from DKUK, because you do a lot for DKUK now. You've been curating the shows here last year as part of KIP.
Yeah.
And this year as part of Girls.
Yeah.
Would you like to talk about KIP a little bit? The remit for that and some of the artists that you've shown?
Yeah, so KIP, really was spurred on by Mark, seeing that I was talking about how I would do things if I was in charge, essentially, and he was like, you should just do it, or we should do it. And he had a studio space at the time. He was renting a studio that he wasn't really using. He was working from home a lot more, just because it was a more comfortable space. It was like an incredibly cold, like quite a hostile environment. So we decided to turn it into a gallery. So we spent about a year talking about it. Because I saw loads of reasons not to do it, not least capacity, finance, but also bringing people into
relationship, healthy relationship.
Yeah, also that I'd never
live with,
worked with friends a lot, never worked with a partner, and exactly I was like, is that mixing? Is that coming a bit too close to home?
Don't shit where you eat.
All of that, yeah, that was definitely all part of it. But my biggest concern, which turned out to be totally unfounded, was that I thought the other artists in the building would hate it, because it was one of those, like, you've got a door and you've got walls, but they don't go all the way up to the ceiling, so there's noise bleed, and it was really like in the middle of the building in an industrial estate, so like the barrier to entry is quite high because you need to find it. Yeah, it wasn't an easy place to find, basically, and for visitors,
yeah.
And I was really trying to not do things that had high barriers to entry, that were making themselves out to be exclusive or hard to find. So we did a lot of work around like the signage and the communication, and like working with the other people within the building, and kind of getting people on board before we did it. And also just a massive conversion, because it was like a really messy, unfinished space, and we turned it into a really like finished, pristine space.
So was that a bit more of a sorry, I never came, but was that more of a white cube space?
It had plywood walls, so it was a wooden box, quite like a soft pinky hued wood. And our invite to artists there was also that they were allowed to choose the floor colour, so we would repaint the floor in a bright colour, and the idea of the walls was that they were hinged, essentially. So again, it wasn't supposed to run as a full-time gallery, it was also still supposed to be able to be a studio, so you could literally lift the wooden walls off the messy painting walls at the back and then just like clip them back on again. But yeah, all Mark's brainchild and expertise and building skill.
But still putting some limiting factors in there for yourself, acknowledging the environment.
Yeah.
And yes, the kind of opposite to the East End gallery scene when I first moved here. That was, it wasn't the height of it, but it was still very much going. 2004, and all the galleries were really hard to find. The East End was not what it is now, very difficult to navigate, no Google Maps, just with your A to Z walking around as a scared art student, trying to find these galleries with buzzers.
Exactly, even knowing that you are allowed to ring the doorbell, or that the fact that you have to ring the doorbell is a self-filtering, like, exclusive system, right? But
It's very much of another time now, that, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, luckily it is changing a bit. But yeah, that's how it started. But we did the first show, and then with the whole building got kicked out, so nothing to do with us. Like hundreds of artists, designers, makers with a 10-day notice period.
Which building was it?
It was just on the side of Burgess Park. Yeah, next to just really in the middle of an industrial estate.
Yeah.
In an old building that now it looks like they haven't actually done anything else with.
10 days, was it carnage then?
It was horrible. Yeah, the building. They hadn't recommunicated their lease, the studio provider, and they hadn't told anyone that this hadn't happened. They were they thought they were still in the midst of negotiating this new lease, but the building owner decided that whatever they were trying to negotiate just wasn't going to happen, and he just got the building repossessed. So from one day to the next, there was external security guards on the gate, stopping people from getting in or getting their stuff out. That had to all be negotiated, and then you had a very short period of time to empty it out. And that was, again, it was quite an eye-opening thing of okay, I shouldn't have, rather than spending a year talking about what this thing could be, maybe we should just have done it. And because through the doing we realised how great it actually was and that we wanted to do more of it. And we just then spent all of this time, effort, money in building it up and getting it set, and then it all had to come back down. So it was kind of, but then luckily we found a home for Kip here for the year, and then now we've moved it into our flat, and now it's become a lot more about what it means to be hosted within a house. That's quite a guiding practice of the exhibitions we're making and the people we're inviting and the offer and the invite. So alongside us going to people's studios, people always also in the first phase before an exhibition is agreed, we cook them dinner so they can come and see the space, but also just get to know us a little bit and see what the working relationship is like through a more kind of generous hosting perspective rather than we're just kind of trying to work through different ways that the offer is a little bit different. Again, not just for the artist, that's a big part of it, but also for the visitor, acknowledging the fact that you do need to feel confident enough to come into someone's home, ring the doorbell. We're on the top floor, so you're going all the way through a residential building. So in many ways, the same sort of kind of questions of how do you make that easy for people that we were dealing with in the studio space initially.
It says a lot to where we are as a city, and in our there's not a lot of space.
Yeah, it's working with the resources that you have available.
With what you've got in that context, and there was a scene in Russia, right? In Soviet Russia, the apt art scene, which was a whole series of shows and exhibitions that were underground, held in people's apartments as well.
Didn't know that. Should check that out. Yeah. That sounds very relevant.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in terms of the artists, that doesn't so much have a guide. We try and show people that haven't had a lot of big breaks yet, that have just been kind of consistently making work in the studio, but maybe aren't that public and visible with it yet, so work a little bit harder to kind of find the right people, rather than just look at what other spaces are doing and kind of move through from there, which I think understandably is often what ends up happening. And also not just look at who's in art school, but find different ways in. And then it's about kind of finding the things that resonate with both Mark and I, just through conversation.
And do you find it, what am I trying to say here? How does it affect your relationship working together? Is that putting a strain on it, or is it more of a positive experience?
It's been largely positive. I'd say, overwhelmingly positive. I've really enjoyed that aspect of it. I've really enjoyed also Because it's not just the relationship of like I do the curatorial side and Mark does the kind of technical side, which is where a lot of his skills and like professional work sits in that realm, but we really want to both do both and share that. And seeing...
I've seen you with a drill, Lucy. You're pretty handy.
Yeah, I can do the basics. Yeah. Again, just like by trying and failing. I'm definitely not the fastest or most proficient. But yeah, the thing that I found really rewarding is like, yeah, really building it up together and kind of working out what works, what doesn't work, and having his input in that and the input in the artistic program and the artistic conversations. And I think people that have the technical knowledge of how something can actually be done are probably the most important people in making the exhibition anyway. Like that is also like a massive part of the curatorial side of things, like the like you can really tell if a show's been well installed.
Yeah, big time.
And that actually involves a lot of artistic decision making as well, and like really shaping how the work is fabricated, how it's brought into a space, how it's hung, where it's hung, all of those sorts of things. So yeah, that's been amazing, that side of it.
Yeah, we had a partner who was a musician, and we like dabbled in making music together, and I loved it. You know, it was a whole different level of relationship. If you're somebody that enjoys working,
yeah,
actually like getting to know somebody who also
through that,
loves working,
yeah,
you know, in that context is a completely different thing, isn't it?
That's
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. So.
What were you playing an instrument?
No, I was writing lyrics.
Nice.
and failing to understand how drum machines work and able to know whatever the software was and all those sort of loops and stuff and samples. But she was very talented, and we mainly just spent most of it getting a bit confused with the production and didn't get much further than that. But I had some good ideas.
Yeah, that's great. That's the best. Ooh. Have you ever listened back to it?
Yeah, it's not very good. I mean, it's more conceptual. I think there's some like found text that I was reading over the top of stuff, which was quite interesting. Yeah. So, if you got advice for younger aspiring curators, then I think there's a lot of lessons you can draw from this conversation here. But it'd be nice to hear your like summary. People starting out. Thinking about a curating course, because they even do BAs now as well.
They do, yeah. Yeah, I think there is a lot to be said for the just going with what feels right. There is also a lot to be said for like working out beforehand what the thing is actually going to give you, and finding the balance between those things of just like trying, doing, and kind of planning, getting that balance right. I think that's been the key. So yeah, saying yes to not everything, but as much as is within your interest and your capacity, because it's all about like what you learn, who you meet, where you go, and that's the thing that kind of that shapes it. So I think that not being afraid to just like work out what excites you and just follow that as far along as you possibly can.
That's nice. So have some ideas and plans, but be very open to the opportunities that come along.
Yeah.
But also choose wisely.
Yeah, you've summarised it better than I could.
Well, it was your my summary, your concept. Okay, so we're coming to the end. I'm going to try asking you a very hard question now. So if you could go back in time to any point in history and be on the shoulders of an artist throughout the production of a work, have you got any idea about what that artwork might be?
Yeah. Any point in time, I would definitely want to go back to maybe like an old court painter. Know what that's like. You know, like Holbein did the Ambassadors, this painting that's in the National, of these like two very stately, like heavily Tudor dressed, fur clad, straight up, important, expensive clothed men, and then this huge like sideways skeleton between them that's meant to be viewed from below. Like it's got a really, really insane angle on it, and it was supposed to be like an optical illusion, like they sometimes do on church ceilings, right? To make it, from your viewpoint, it's supposed to look evened out. I don't see how it's possible, because they're straight on, this thing's like completely stretched. But anyway, not so much about that painting itself, but more about like being able to step in and then out of like what that environment is like, of like being employed by someone who you also need to document and therefore do it favorably within that sort of time period when like the royals, I guess, or the people in court were the like patrons, were the art people. But I was moving that on a little bit. I think when people went like a Bruegel, you know, these like scenes of,
you can only have one.
Well, okay, there's a couple. Can I go through one more?
Okay, go on, one more.
There's one work that I really, really love, and it's a more contemporary piece. I think it's from the 80s or 90s, I don't actually know for sure, by Fishley and Weiss. It's this video that follows the set of kind of kinetic moments. So like sunning with a pin will come in and it will pop a balloon, and the balloon's full of smoke, and the smoke will set off this next thing, and that will tip this thing over, and this thing tips over and it's got soap in it, and then it like foams up to become bubbles, and the bubbles spill over and it rolls into the next thing, and it's just like this really, really long, slow tracking shot of that whole sequence of events. And I think being in that space and first figuring out how to make that work, and like what the sequence of these things is, and kind of making these like little impossible machines, and then setting it off and it actually working, like by the time you've actually got the take where it's done the thing, I think that must have been great.
That is a great answer. I really want to watch that video again now.
Yeah, you know the one I mean?
I do know the one you mean, yeah.
Iconic piece of work.
Yeah. And I believe it was, didn't a car company like kind of rip it off for an advert as well, I think?
Oh really? That
So,
sounds about right.
I think I do. I'm sure it's been sampled lots. Yeah, I think I did something like that. Okay, we're coming to the end of the haircut now. Just dealing with this
How's it looking?
tricky hairline back here. We are getting there. How does it feel? Can you see in the screen of the camera?
I can see myself about the size of a fingernail, so I've got a sense, but the wires also sort of strategically in front. I'm ready for the surprise.
I think there. Let's get the mirror. Ta-da! Okay, Lucy, welcome to your new hair.
Ooh, nice. Yes, definitely an 8 out of 10 change. Amazing.
Questions are the fringe. Is that okay? Push it around a little bit. I know it's not going to be going to either side, so.
Yeah, I like that it is essentially still straight over. I think that's good, and that it can have the kind of flexibility of that way, open, out, back. Yeah, it's great.
And the colour, has worked out really well. I'll show you the back.
Yeah, it's not the way you've brought it forwards a bit. You're right. It's like it doesn't have the ring at all, and it's actually way more red than I thought it would be. But I'm super happy with that.
Yeah, we'll put some product on in a moment, and that should like separate that a little bit. But you've got, as I said, nape area there.
Nice. Oh yeah, nice. Looks tight.
20 odd years in the game.
Yeah.
Can predict that well. Which, like I say, gives it a bit of dimension. You've got that darker hairline through the back, and then this sort of like softer red here, and I think the red works really nice.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even suggest colouring it. I would just like leave it like that.
Yeah.
I'll get a bit of product to pop in.
Yeah, it's super nice.
So I'm just going to use some of the texture spray. It's super dry. You'll still be able to move the hair around, but it should just separate it a little bit.
It's got mohawk potential. Just so.
It's got what?
Mohawk potential.
Mohawk potential. You can see some of those roots like coming through now.
Yeah, you're right. I feel like it's totally an unfounded worry. Like,
Yeah.
But I knew I'd be in good hands.
Fantastic. Well, there we go.
Amazing. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Really nice chat. Also.
Yeah, it's really good. Bye, Lucy. Bye. Thanks for coming. Oh, it was really good to see her. What an amazing change. I'm quite knackered and I was quite unprepared to think I was cutting off so much hair. Have a look at the photos and let me know what you think. I really admired how Lucy did not have a plan and just took the opportunities that arose and did what she was excited about. I think there's a lesson for us all there. And what I really took away from the conversation was not to work too hard. Don't burn yourself out and make sure it's sustainable. Because when we have jobs that we love, when we're creative, we just want to work all the time. So yeah, don't burn yourself out. And also you can build something with the tools that you've got, whether that just be your flat or your hairdressing skills. You don't need to know where you're going. You just need to be excited, follow what you're excited about. If you want to know more about Lucy, you can check out the exhibitions that she's produced here at DKUK. You can look for the links below. We'll put some links to her project space and to the curatorial collective. They're going to be doing the exhibitions at DKUK this year, so keep your eye out for them. If you want to come and say hello in the salon, you can find us at dkuk.biz. Thank you for watching all the way to the end and see you in the next one.